America's two great pastimes collide on this podcast. It is baseball and making money. From the dog days of summer through the October Classic, Greg Bases Peterson's going to be free swinging at the betting board as he tries to hit a grand slam for your bankroll. Now here is GP.
Hello everyone and welcome into the Azuña Tequila Studios for MLB Overtime Betting. Greg Peterson coming at you once again as we've got a great show for you. Michael Baumann of The Ringer going to be joining me in the second segment. He is a Midwest guy, so we're going to be talking a little bit about the NL Central. Going to be just talking a little bit about some of the players and teams that have surprised them. It's going to be terrific. He does great work, so I'm looking forward to that. In the final segment, I give you a side and total on every game on the Vegas betting board, and we do so in a little something that I like to call Touch 'em All. But you guys fired in quite a few questions for me yesterday, and I am more than happy to answer every one of them, so let's get into it.
So you have questions, and Greg may or may not have any insight into them, but let's dive into the Twitter mailbag.
First one comes from a gentleman that goes by Enrique Gilbert. I hope I said that correctly. You can follow him on Twitter at OyGila. That is spelled OYEGILA. And his question was in regards to lineups at unit_81. Appreciate all the hard work, Greg. And I say, thank you, Mr. Enrique. I would like to know how you handicap these games without knowing who will start those games. And this is in regards to their actual lineup. I asked a follow-up question just for clarification, because obviously, typically when you're betting on these games, you know who the starting pitcher is going to be, but this is in regards to lineup. For one, typically you know who's going to be starting 4 out of 5 days, but typically whenever a guy that is a little bit more notable, like maybe a Lorenzo Cain of the Milwaukee Brewers, we'll take that for an example, is not going to be in the starting lineup, typically the manager the day before will probably let someone know, and it'll get out through the grapevine. One of these things that I try to do whenever I handicap baseball is I just try to take a couple minutes and listen to the post-game pressers of all these managers, because they typically have comments before they go into questions and everything like that. Typically they'll address it right there, and then if they don't address it, and sometimes it leaks out a little bit early, you can find that on Twitter. I find that looking at local beat writers, like if you're looking at betting a Nationals versus Braves game, for example, just throwing one out there just out of complete thin air, and you're wondering if Juan Soto is going to play or not, I would just check the Twitter feeds of local beat reporters, and they'll typically be able to give you a pretty good answer. If you're seeing nothing on it, he's probably going to go. If you're seeing some smoke, you might want to adjust. And something else I find very interesting is that sometimes you'll notice there's a lot of steam offshore, like at midnight Pacific time on some of these games. Typically when you see steam on the other side, you want to check into it. Now, typically, it's just people betting on the game and everything like that, but if I see the Nationals just all of a sudden getting steamed up or steamed down, it makes me look, okay, is there someone missing in this game? Is there someone that's going to be getting the day off or something like that? I just do a double check, because sometimes it is a late announcement that a guy's not going to be playing the next day. Those are the keys I look at when trying to predict lineups for the next day. Very good question there. Next up, this one comes in from Joseph Austin Mann. You can follow him on Twitter at JamAMan, and that is spelled with 2 N's at the end of man, 1995. And he said, at unit_81, you kind of brought it up on the podcast today with the Nationals, but would you say that betting too heavily on the starting pitcher is bad? It seems like that would be the first thing the market goes off of, so these starters are priced in, but other factors aren't as much, and I would say you're 110% correct. There is a reason why I have been fading the Washington Nationals so much this year. The Washington Nationals have terrific starting pitching. I'm going to bash Steven Strasburg in my edition of Touch 'em All, but he, all in all, a very good starting pitcher. Patrick Corbin, terrific starting pitcher. Even Jeremy Hellickson, he doesn't necessarily go deep, but he's not a terrible starting pitcher, and we all know about Max Scherzer. But what they also have is the worst bullpen out there in the big leagues. They've got a good offense, but not a great offense. Anthony Rendon getting the job done for sure. He's hitting 400. He's hit for a bunch of power. Ryan Zimmerman, not so much. Guys like Defoe at the bottom of the lineup, not really generating a lot for this team. So when you've got an average offense and a bullpen that is dead last, you need to rely on these starters going 7 to 8 innings for your ticket to cash. And even if the bullpen only has to come in for an inning or two, they can still gas can the game. So that's why I try to take a look at all factors, not just the starting pitcher. I noticed that when you're able to fade some of these starting pitchers and you're able to get these massive plus prices, it can lead to you having a lot of success. So I thought that was another great question. Thank you for that. And this is one that I'm throwing out here right now. I don't necessarily have a great answer, but I want to address it right now so that way we can do a little bit of research. We can make it sort of our MLB overtime betting group project. At KShay001, someone who's tweeted in some fantastic questions so far this year, goes by KShay. At Gina_81, I have started doing research into West Coast teams playing early on East Coast and vice versa for who wins. Have you done any research on how it affects the over-unders and everything like that? And this is one that I've always been curious on as well. I typically like to go a little bit more on the underside whenever I notice this, just because I notice that in early games in general. I do think that we need a little bit more of a definition of, and I quote, early. Is this like the Saturday games where the games start at 12:05 a.m. Pacific time? Is this any time before the game starts at 7 p.m. Eastern or anything like that? But I noticed this in college basketball, and I noticed this in the MLB, and I even feel like this has a little bit of an effect in the NFL too, that I don't think that it's as prevalent in regards to over-under in the NFL. I think that it results more on the side, but whenever you have a West Coast team going to the East Coast, typically I notice that the games are a little bit lower scoring, and I just noticed that in early games in general. We saw it in the Boston Red Sox versus the Baltimore Orioles game. The game went under when it was played very early. I noticed this on Saturday and Sunday. It just felt like the weekend days so far this year has had more unders towards the early part of the day, and then towards the later part of the day you see more overs. I think that it is very interesting, and it's something I want to take a look into myself. So I did think that was a tremendous question. Thank you so much for that one. And one more question we had come in. This is from a gentleman that goes by Tony B. You can follow him on Twitter at Tony, the letter B, 441 at Gina_81. How do you combat the in-game betting problem of lag for a lot of internet streams, maybe cable, question mark? I'm not sure what to do. This is one where I would say your best friend would be something like a Don Best or a live line ticker, because these line updaters, these Don Best screens, everything like that, they are getting the information as quickly as the books are. So that is your best friend right there. And obviously, you're not going to be able to beat all lag whatsoever unless if you're live there at a game, because all this is being input into a machine and everything like that. So no matter what, you're going to be at the very best 2, 3, 4 seconds behind. It's just something that is completely unavoidable in these situations. But I find that if you're on one of those sites that they're live tracking betting odds and everything like that, that's probably your best friend. I personally do not do a whole lot of in-game betting, if not any at all, so I've never really ran into this issue. But I would think that this would be your best friend if you are looking to in-game bet, because I even noticed that at the Vegas Stats and Information Network, we used to have TVs up and everything like that, and these Don Best tickers and everything like that, they would always be the first ones to update whenever a team would score a basket in college basketball and everything like that. So hopefully that is some sage advice there, and hopefully we can find some bettable trends from yesterday's action.
So what teams and players is Greg looking to back? He will lay it on you in the call-up.
I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but we've got to be continuing to fade the Boston Red Sox at this point. They lose to the Baltimore Orioles by a count of 8-1. Dan Straley entered in with a 19.29 ERA. That was the year of the Great Depression. Now it's down to a 10.24, which is the size of how many megabytes you need for a gigabyte. So he is now Gigabyte Dan Straley instead of Great Depression Dan Straley, as the Baltimore Orioles win this game 8-1. If you were betting on the Boston Red Sox with Hector Velasquez as a 260 favorite as a starting pitcher, I don't know what to tell you. As the Boston Red Sox give up a home run to Chris Crush Davis, his first home run in an eon. And then another big game came out from Dwight Smith Jr. He had 4 RBI in this one. the Baltimore Orioles actually have a pretty good offense, and it seems as though their relief pitching has actually gotten a little bit better too. So perhaps there's some value here with the Baltimore Orioles. Meanwhile, with the Boston Red Sox, oh boy, it's just not going well. The overs in Mets games continue to cash. 7-6, the final. The Mets knock off the Philadelphia Phillies in this game. It was Brandon Nimmo being able to go yard, his third home run of the year. The real savior for the New York Mets was in the 11th inning as Juan Lagares scores on an error made by Rhys Hoskins. Go figure, as this was just one of the most badly botched plays that you're going to find, as on that play, there was not one but two errors made. It was Cesar Hernandez with the throw, and then Rhys Hoskins as well. Oh boy, that was not good, to say the least. As in this one, the Philadelphia Phillies actually got some very good relief pitching. Aaron Nola's a guy that you gotta look to fade right now. He's not his old self. He goes 4 innings, gives up 5 runs, 3 walks. He did have 6 strikeouts, but man, other than that little fumble right there, the Philadelphia Phillies bullpen was actually good. Pat Neshek takes a loss, but he's a little bit of a tough luck loser in this one. You had guys like Alvarez and company that did a good job. Maikel Franco hit his 5th home run of the year. Philadelphia Phillies bats still getting the job done, as Andrew McCutchen was able to come around with 2 hits. Gene Segura at the top of the lineup had 2 hits. Bryce Harper went 1 of 6. He seems to be in a little bit of a slump, but you got guys like Franco and company coming through. And then for the New York Mets, they wound up doing a great job of being able to draw walks. Brandon Nimmo had 3 himself, including that home run. Pete Alonso was hitting .339. The Mets in general are just playing a lot of overs. You got to look at them. And then how about the Mets bullpen coming up clutch, as Noah Syndergaard also had a bad outing. He winds up giving up 5 earned in 5 innings. He's got a .563 ERA, but Seth Lugo got a hold. Jesus Familia gave up a run. We all saw that coming, but hey, Robbie Gesellman even gave this team 1.1 scoreless innings, and even Luis Avilan. It's like a Christmas miracle right there. And another Christmas miracle, the Cubs got a win with Yu Darvish on the mound. The Cubs were able to win this game by a count of 7-2, as you could tell the strike zone just was not there for Trevor Richards. He was getting the deficit of the calls in this one, but he did not pitch very well. He gave up 4 walks, 5 earned runs in 4.2 innings. Wei-Yun Chen lowered his ERA to 18 for the Miami Marlins. That's a good sign, and they were able to get a home run in this one from the catcher, who's actually been hitting quite well for this team, and Chad Wallish. That was his first dinger of the year, and he is actually hitting .333. That's a good sign for the Miami Marlins. But for the Chicago Cubs, Yu Darvish finally looked good in a start, 5.2 innings. He gives up 2 earned runs. He did have 4 walks, but the 8 strikeouts were nice. He's still on my fade list, but how about the Cubs bullpen also being able to deliver 3.1 innings of shutout baseball as well? Wilson Contreras went yard. His 6th home run of the year, he had 3 RBI, and David Bodie was able to do a great job as well. He had 3 RBI in this one as well. The St. Louis Cardinals, they were able to hang 7 runs, but the Brewers just much better on offense. They put up a 10 spot. They win this game by a count of 10-7. In this game, the St. Louis Cardinals got a horrible start from Dakota Hudson. I have not been bullish on him whatsoever. He does a terrible job of locating. He had 3 walks in 3.2 innings, gave up 6 runs, but it wasn't even him that wound up taking the loss, as giving up 3 runs in this game was Mike Mayers. Not to be confused with Mike Myers from whatever horror movie. I am completely forgetting on it right now. It's not the Freddy one. The Axeman, I don't know. You guys are probably laughing at me right now. I'm a sports handicapper. I don't have time for movies. But what I do know is that Paul Goldschmidt hit a home run in this one, his 7th of the year. Marcell Ozuna went deep for his 6th dinger. That was in the 9th inning. And then Paul DeJong went deep for his 4th. And that home run that Ozuna hit was actually off of Josh Hader, who gave up his first earned run of the year. But the bullpen of the Milwaukee Brewers actually had some pretty good outings in this one, as Freddie Peralta just was not able to go deep. He winds up giving up 3 runs in 3.1 innings, and that put a whole lot of stress on a whole lot of guys to be able to hold down the fort, as Junior Guerra was actually the guy that came in and got the win. He had 1.2 innings of scoreless baseball, but you have to be a little bit concerned that Alex Claudio did not look very good in this game. He gave up 3 runs in 1/10 of an inning. Needless to say, that's not going to get the job done, but what is? Mike Moustakas. He seems to be back and in full force. He has 2 hits in this one, a double and a dinger. His 6th of the year. Christian Yelich, not 1, not 2, but 3 home runs, as he now has 8 for the season. This guy is raking 7 RBI in this contest. He's got to be a front runner for MVP once again, along with Cody Bellinger. He comes up clutch for the Brewers. They get the win. How about the Toronto Blue Jays coming up clutch? They put up a 5 spot on the Minnesota Twins. They win this game by a count of 5-3. 4 of those runs in the 8th inning, as the real hero in this one for the Toronto Blue Jays. How about Teoscar Hernandez hitting a 3-run home run in the 8th inning? That is his first of the year, and that is exactly what the Toronto Blue Jays needed to get going. This is a squad that had been struggling at the plate. They wind up getting 11 hits in this one. Matt Shoemaker actually got a little bit roughed up. He wound up giving up 3 runs in this one, as the Twins were able to get a home run out of C.J. Cron. That was his second home run of the year, but he was really the only guy that was hitting for the team, as he and Jorge Polanco had 4 of the team's 5 hits. The other one came from Jake Cave, which that's a good sign for them. And the Minnesota offense in general seems to be coming around. Martin Perez, still a guy I really can't bet on. He only gives up 1 run in this one, but it just felt like he was getting out of a little bit of trouble, as he had a couple walks himself. And then the Minnesota Twins bullpen, that had been quite good this year, got let down by Adalberto Mejia, as he now has a 9.39 ERA, giving up 4 runs in 2 innings in this one. How he was left in after giving up that 3-run dinger, no one will know, but a big win for the Toronto Blue Jays, who have been catching some good plus prices recently. Shelby Miller is a pitcher that I've been looking to fade all year long. Those Texas Rangers were able to get a 12-7 win over the LA Angels. I will continue to look to fade him, because in 4.1 innings, this win wasn't necessarily credited to him, because he gave up 4 runs, gave up 3 walks, including a dinger, and it was the Angels out to a 4-0 lead, and then they completely blew it. And the Texas Rangers, they got these 12 runs while hitting 4 for 19 with men in scoring position. That tells you just how bad the pitching was. Shin-Soo Choo goes deep for his first home run of the year, as Drupal Cabrera hits his 5th dinger of the year. Joey Gallo has his 5th home run of the year. It was just not a good showing from the LA Angels. Trevor Cahill gives up 4 earned runs in 4 innings. Cam Bedrosian gives up 3 earned runs. He gave up another one that was unearned in 2/3 of an inning. Jake Jewell also gave up 3 earned runs, and then Curtis tops it off by giving up another earned run, as the LA Angels entered this night with the best bullpen ERA in the bigs. They did not live up to it, but how about a bullpen that actually has been doing a decent job recently, as the White Sox are able to get a 5-4 win over the Kansas City Royals. Irvin Santana, as expected, gave up some runs in 5 innings, gives up 3 earned runs, has 3 walks, but then from there, the White Sox give up 1 earned run in 4 innings from the bullpen, and Colome actually gets a save for them. The White Sox bullpen might be actually turning the corner, and Wellington Castillo, the hero in this one, as in the 8th inning, he gets a home run off our good friend Brad Boxberger. How this guy is in the majors right now just stuns me. You can't be betting on the Royals right now, because their bullpen is just a complete flaming pile of garbage. The Kansas City Royals actually got a good start out of Heath Fillmyer. He goes 5 innings, he gives up 3 runs. He's not necessarily the Mona Lisa Vito of pitching, but that wasn't terrible. Heck, Scott Barlow actually gave them 2 shutout innings out of the bullpen. And then Brad Boxberger just pours lighter fluid on the game and lights a match. It happens every single time. You can't be betting on this Kansas City Royals bullpen, but if there is any good news, if you're betting on the Royals today, you can certainly bet that Brad Boxberger not going to be coming into the game. And if you're looking for some more encouraging signs, Chad Owings hit his first home run of the year, and Hunter Dozier is 4th of the campaign for the Kansas City Royals. If you were betting on the Cincinnati Reds yesterday, that was a brutal beat, as Jock Peterson hits a walk-off homer, and the Dodgers win this game by a count of 4-3. What's interesting is this was Clayton Kershaw's first outing of the year. He looked pretty good. 7 innings, 84 pitches, gives up 2 earned runs. This was much better than I expected him to look. For the Cincinnati Reds, it was Yasiel Puig being able to hit a home run, his 2nd of the year, and his 2nd in as many games, so perhaps he's starting to get things turned around. And then it wasn't until the 9th that the Reds would score again. Matt Kemp reaches on an infield single, but Jock Peterson was able to will this team to victory, and the Dodgers, who had lost 6 straight games going into Sunday, now back on a 2-game winning streak, as Pedro Baez was able to pitch a shutout inning, and Kenley Jansen, who has an ERA of 2.45, just not the guy that he once was. He wound up giving up that earned run to Matt Kemp. Colorado Rockies were able to get their second straight win as they knock off the San Diego Padres by a count of 5-2. Antonio Senzatella actually looked really good in the start. 6.2 innings, gives up 1 run. Perhaps he's a little bit of an undervalued pitcher. I was very pleasantly surprised. And then from there, Scott Oberg winds up giving up 1 run for the bullpen. But all in all, the Colorado Rockies bullpen has looked decent. And if you want more good signs for the Rockies, Nolan Arenado with a home run in back-to-back days. Perhaps this Rockies lineup is starting to turn things around. And Ian Desmond has his average up to $164 after he goes for 2 hits, including a home run with 3 RBI. That is absolutely huge for them. Trevor Story and Mark Reynolds also have hits. That was big. And for the San Diego Padres, Will Myers and Famio Reyes both had their 4th home runs of the year, but they were just bases empty home runs, as that was really the reason why they were unable to pull this one out, as they just still are not getting Ian Kinsler going. He's hitting $160. Arias at the second base spot hitting $105, and it's just really a feast or famine lineup at this point with the San Diego Padres. And one other final to enlighten you on, Cleveland Indians wind up knocking off the Seattle Mariners by a count of 6-4. A big game for the Cleveland Indians after they got swept by the Kansas City Royals. Brad Hand was able to close the door after the Cleveland Indians bullpen did not necessarily look great in this one. Trevor Bauer goes 6.2 innings, gives up just 1 run. But then from there, Oliver Perez gives up 2 runs, and they also had a earned run from Adam Clymer as well, so not necessarily great there, but all in all, the Indians' bullpen has been pretty good. And for the Seattle Mariners, Yusei Kikuchi had a little bit of a rough go of it to start off the game. He winds up giving up 3 earned runs, and all of those came in the first 3 innings as Jose Ramirez went deep for his first home run of the year. Ding dong, the witch is dead. He finally gets a home run for this team. It has been a very long year for him, as he's currently hitting $150, but perhaps Carlos Gonzalez getting back into the lineup is going to help out this team. He's only 2 of 10 in the 2 games that he's been in the lineup, but you can tell that it's giving guys like Carlos Santana and Hanley Ramirez more pitches to hit, and Jason Kipnis also made his season debut. So perhaps that's exactly what this Cleveland Indians lineup needed, as the Seattle Mariners once again got a home run. Their 19th straight game with a home run, the longest streak to begin a year in MLB history. Edwin Encarnacion goes deep for his 5th home run of the year, and Omar Narvaez also hit a dinger, his 3rd of the year. That was in the 8th inning off of Oliver Perez. So some very interesting results and some great Twitter questions answered, so thank you guys for that. And now coming up next, we got to welcome in Michael Baumann of The Ringer to join us and talk a little NL Central, talk about surprise players and teams, and just have a little bit of fun. And that is up next right here on MLB Overtime Betting.
Greg is going to the bullpen as he makes a call to the Azuña hotline.
And we're back here on MLB Overtime Betting, broadcasting from the Azuña Tequila Studios out here in beautiful Las Vegas. Great pleasure to be joined by our next guest. He does terrific work out there for The Ringer. You can follow him on Twitter at Michael Baumann, and Baumann is spelled with 2 N's at the end of it, as it is Michael Baumann who is joining me on this fine day. And how are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for pointing out the 2 N's thing. Most people don't get that.
I know that a lot of people do not, and I believe that you are actually a Midwest guy, because I know that I'm a gentleman that I hail from Oshkosh, Wisconsin. If I remember correctly, you're living out there in the Midwest as well.
Yep. Enjoy it quite a lot. It's beautiful weather, cheap cost of living, anything you could possibly want.
Oh, exactly. And what we're noticing is a couple teams out there in the Midwest playing some very good baseball, including the Milwaukee Brewers. They take 2 of 3 over the weekend from the LA Dodgers. Things seem to be very good for this team. And this is without all the pieces necessarily getting going. Mike Moustakas starting to hit some home runs for the team, but Jesus Aguilar hasn't necessarily been great with the bat. Orlando Arcia is starting to come around as well. He hasn't necessarily been great. And we know that the bullpen with Jeremy Jeffries and Corey Knebel has been quite banged up. What have you made out of the Brewers so far this year? Because this team certainly looks like a force out there in the NL Central.
Yeah, and this is a team that I was really high on coming into the season. I was really impressed by what they did last year. I thought when they went out and got Lorenzo Cain and Christian Yelich last season, I thought those guys, I don't know if I necessarily predicted they'd be like two of the top 5 position players in the National League, but I thought the two of them were going to score a ton of runs. I really liked the bringing in Yasmani Grandal. Catcher was one of maybe 2 or 3 weak positions that they had last season. They went out and picked up for essentially nothing one of the 2 or 3 best catchers in baseball. He's been hitting pretty well in the early going this season, and he's one of it's him and JT Realmuto and really only a couple other guys who can provide any sort of offensive value behind the plate. Bullpen is a problem, which is weird to say considering how good it was last year. But Josh Hader's been good so far this season. And what we've seen is a lot of the guys that they relied on, Brandon Woodruff and Corbin Burns, were two of the people who really made that work last postseason. They're pitching out of the rotation. The two of them are 2 pitchers I like quite a bit going forward this season. Burns in particular, I think he could be pretty special.
I think that it is really interesting to see how this NL Central is going to play out, and I'm right there with you. I do like the way that the Brewers really came together last year, especially with their outfield. And what do you think about another team that made some moves out there in the offseason from that same division, the St. Louis Cardinals? Paul Goldschmidt has been doing a great job of being able to give this team power, but he's off to another slow start, much like he was last year with regards to the average. You got guys like Yadier Molina, Dexter Fowler. They're just not picking things up. Colton Wong has gotten a little bit cold. I think that this is an intriguing team as well because they've got a lot of young arms, and the guys out there in their starting rotation just seem to be not getting the job done.
I'd give them a little bit of time because, like you said, they do have a lot of talented pitchers. And I think I picked them to finish second in the division and take home the first National League wild card because I did like a lot of the stuff they did this offseason, Goldschmidt in particular. I'm not worried about him. I think he is getting a little older, but it seems like every year for the past 7 years, somebody writes why is Paul Goldschmidt hitting 190 in April, and by the end of the season, he's got 40 home runs every year. So I'm not that worried about Goldschmidt. I'm not worried about the pitchers. I like a lot of the depth. They've just got so many good players, and it's on Mike Schilt, their manager, to try to figure out what their best lineup is day in, day out, because players like Matt Carpenter, Jose Martinez, Tyler O'Neill, they're trying to find where the best spot in the batting order and the defensive position is. And I think that if you do that smartly, you look at what the Cubs did in 2016 or the Astros did in 2017, where they substituted a ton, or even the Dodgers last year, substituting a ton game to game and within a game to make sure that the best team and the best lineup for any given situation is out on the field. The managers who did that, Dave Roberts, Joe Madden, AJ Hinch, we think of as some of the best in baseball. If Schilt is that capable as an in-game tactician, I think the Cardinals could. They're definitely the most threatening challenger to Brewers in the NL Central.
I do agree with you there. As Michael Baumann joining me right here on MLB Overtime Betting. And how about another team out there in the NL Central? Because you just said that the Cardinals are probably the Brewers' biggest challenger out there. The Chicago Cubs I find very interesting. Their bullpen this year, it's been getting better, but it just has not been good. We noticed that Anthony Rizzo and Kyle Schwarber are both hitting below 200 going into Monday's action. I just don't know what to make of this team right now because they've got a lot of guys that are hitting decent. Daniel Descalso has stepped up. He's hitting above 300. We all know what Javi Baez and company can do, but it just feels like with that bullpen, it's really hard to rely upon this team.
Well, I think the fact that you mentioned Daniel Descalso as the big offensive cog, like you said, that's instructive. I'm not 2 weeks into the season. I'm not worried about this lineup. It's loaded top to bottom. I think Rizzo will figure things out, but the pitching staff is worrisome because there are a lot of pitchers in there who have performed very well very recently, and it just hasn't fallen into place. And whether this is rust, this is sorting yourself out early in the season, or if it's that, then I think the Cubs can still right themselves. But they're already in a pretty big hole. Just looking at Fangraphs playoff odds, they are 26% to win the division. I think Baseball Prospectus has them as just 11% to make the playoffs, which they were lower on the Cubs coming into the season, so maybe take that projection with a grain of salt. But I think that illustrates the peril of not only they have to sort themselves out, but they've dug themselves a hole. They're 4 games back on the Brewers right now, and they're behind the Cardinals, the Pirates. Even the Reds are not a tough out. So they've really put themselves behind the 8 ball early this season. I was a little bit pessimistic on the Cubs coming into the season. I think they might have done as much as any team in the first 2 weeks of the season to damage their playoff aspirations.
Speaking of teams that damage their playoff aspirations early, how about the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees out there in the American League East? it's not going well for either of these teams. As we're doing this broadcast right now, I'm watching the Boston versus Baltimore games, and they just got no hit through the first 4 innings by something called Dan Straley. Not necessarily a redeeming quality there for the Boston Red Sox. Meanwhile, with the New York Yankees, this team is just so banged up. You've got Didi Gregorius injured for a very long time, Dylan Betances, Giancarlo Stanton, Troy Tulowitzki, Gary Sanchez. It's one of those things where it's like, need I say more? What have you made out of these two teams? Because right now the AL East is just so wild, with the Tampa Bay Rays leading the charge and getting some very good bullpen pitching.
Yeah, my colleague Zach Cram picked the Rays to win the American League East. I mean, the Rays are starting to stretch that lead into a position where maybe they can hold it. Like, it's almost like a cycling race. If somebody gets far enough ahead earlier in the race, the pack can't chase them down. And it's early, but I'm starting to consider that as a possibility, that the Rays could stay out in front. I think the Red Sox are a better team than the Yankees, but I find their struggles more puzzling. With the Yankees, it's just as soon as they're healthy, you know they're going to be good again. And it's a more concrete obstacle than anything the Red Sox might be facing, but maybe it's a more substantial obstacle, but at least you know what the problem is. And with the Red Sox, they've got inconsistencies up and down the lineup throughout the rotation. Chris Sale hasn't looked like himself. Rick Porcello got beat up over the weekend again. I still have confidence in the Red Sox to come back and win that division, but last week I wasn't worried. Now we're getting in that position, like I said, with the Cubs, where maybe the amount they're falling behind in the standings is, I don't know if it's a huge problem, but it's something to keep an eye on.
It certainly is, as Michael Baumann joining me right here on MLB Overtime Betting. And another team that I feel like has underwhelmed a little bit so far this year, the Cleveland Indians, are coming off getting swept by the Kansas City Royals, and Homer Bailey, whose teams were 1-21 in his last 22 starts, managed to go 7 strong innings and help deliver the Kansas City Royals a shutout in that game. It just feels like you don't know what you're going to get out of the Indians from day to day. In 2 games last week, they had 8 runs, and then they get shut out by Homer Bailey and company. What do you make out of this team right now? Because I thought that they would be the most commanding division winner out there in baseball, and so far, they just haven't gotten things going. Obviously, not having Lindor and Kipnis has hurt them quite a bit.
Yeah, Lindor in particular. I mean, this is something that we've devoted a lot of real estate to on the Ringer, and something we talked about a lot internally. Is the American League Central is so bad apart from Cleveland. They went into this offseason sort of trimming payroll, trying to put the cheapest division winner out there possible, as opposed to really maximizing their talent on the major league roster. And so what they've come up with is 4 exceptional starting pitchers, a couple really good relief pitchers, Brad Hand, Adam Simber, but even then, like, the depth is not what it was a couple years ago. And 2 of, I don't know, maybe the top 10 position players in the American League in Lindor and Jose Ramirez. And apart from that, like, Hanley Ramirez is getting significant playing time. This is not a major league quality outfield they're putting out there. And they're suffering the consequences of it. And with Lindor on the shelf, with Mike Clevenger now out long-term, who's a guy who's not only a good pitcher, but pitches a ton of innings, which is incredibly rare in this day and age. They've got huge holes now. Their room for error really was built into the rest of the division just being that bad. And now, you know, maybe if the Twins are a little bit better than we expected, if they get Dallas Keuchel and Craig Kimbrell are still out there, if they make a move for one of those guys, if they make a trade, they've got some maybe underperforming big leaguers who have a lot of upside. I think Cleveland's in real danger now. They were very cavalier this offseason, and it's a team I like watching a lot, and with a bunch of personalities and players who aesthetically I really like, and I've enjoyed watching them in the playoffs the past couple of years. But it would be kind of poetic if it was a very arrogant way that their front office approached this offseason, and you don't want to see teams rewarded for cheaping out like that.
Exactly. We've got Michael Baumann of The Ringer joining me right here on MLB Overtime Betting, and I think that it is so interesting that you point that out. And the Twins have actually looked pretty good so far this year. I like Jose Barria as a starting pitcher. I've been pleasantly surprised by Michael Pineda, and I do think that the bullpen of the Twins is also a good asset as well. They're one of the best out there in baseball, and I think that we're noticing this time and time again. These teams with these good bullpens are ascending towards the top of the standings. Even though the Indians have gotten 0 offense whatsoever, they are above 500 because their bullpen has been good this year. And you're noticing that these teams like the Nationals are starting to underachieve because their bullpen just can't hold the lead.
Yeah, and that's sort of unpredictable early in the season. Nationals relief pitching situation sort of is what it is right now. Time will tell. There's only one way to find out if that's going to happen. I do love Barrios. One thing that's interesting, and I sort of alluded to this a minute ago when we were talking about Cleveland, is that Minnesota has so many players who have shown flashes, whether it's Buxton, whether it's No, whether it's Eddie Rosario, Jonathan Scope, Max Kepler, Barrios, Pineda, Kyle Gibson, who have shown flashes of being really very good big leaguers and have just been inconsistent for one reason or another. And I think that makes them sort of an interesting low floor, high ceiling play, particularly now that Cleveland's banged up. That division looks eminently winnable. Always root in favor of pennant races. If nothing else, I want to see Minnesota give Cleveland a run for their money.
It certainly would be nice, and it would be unexpected as compared to what we saw going into the year. And out of everything that we've seen, the year is about 2.5, 3 weeks old, something like that. What's been perhaps the most pleasant surprise that you've seen? Because I think that we can both agree that the Seattle Mariners coming from out of nowhere and starting the year 12-5 has been a very good story. We've seen a couple guys like Cody Bellinger just absolutely ball out. It's been spectacular. What has really stood out to you?
Oh boy. The Mariners have been fun in that sort of inexplicable early season way. I think the emergence of a couple really fun teams to watch. The Phillies having added Bryce Harper and, just the way their lineup is completely stacked now. The Mets to a lesser extent, I think fit that bill. If I was going to talk about one player who has really stood out to me, it'd be Pete Alonso, their first baseman, who I've followed since he was a sophomore at Florida. He is a very large, strong man. And I wrote last week about the effects of putting somebody with that kind of strength and that kind of bat control too. For somebody of that much power from the right-hand side is very, very unusual. And we've seen him hit the absolute bejesus out of the ball. He's been a lot of fun to watch. Barrios, more than any other starting pitcher, a guy who has been on the radar for a very long time. And just in terms of throwing strikes and being durable, the question marks are not about the stuff. The stuff is absolutely ace level. And if he puts it all together this season, there is, I don't want to come off as maybe too optimistic, but if he puts it all together, there is Cy Young upside. German Marquez, he's another young up-and-coming pitcher who's maybe off the radar a little more than Barrios was, but he was probably either the best or second best pitcher in the Rockies rotation. He might remain a little bit off the radar if the Rockies don't start winning more games, but he's another pitcher I really enjoy watching.
I'm right there with you. Marquez in that game on Sunday was just lights out. I believe it was a one-hit shutout against now a San Francisco Giants team that, let's face it, they're light hitting to say the least, but regardless,
it still counts.
Exactly. That is all that matters. It's a one-hit shutout against a major league team. That's all you need to know, in my opinion. And Michael, I'd like to close it up with this. I know you're doing tremendous work out there with the Ringer. I know that you've got a show of your own. Let the good people at home know where they can find that and where they can find your work.
Yeah, all of my work, whether it's baseball, whether it's other sports, do some TV, pop culture, politics, other stuff at theringer.com. You can search for my stuff, but I recommend reading everything there because we've got a really incredible stable of writers and podcasters. The Ringer MLB show comes out every Tuesday. Talk to Zach Cram and Ben Lindbergh and a couple other people from around the world of baseball once a week. And you can follow me on Twitter at Michael Baumann with 2 N's.
With 2 N's, yes, sir. Always have to point that out because it's one of those things where you got to get the spelling correctly. You don't want to be going to some random guy that's tweeting about like UFOs or something like that.
No, it's like a school board administrator in Iowa or something that.
Yeah, that would not be good. So a big thanks to Michael Baumann for joining me right here on MLB Overtime Betting. And now that we're a little bit more enlightened, it is that time that I give you a side and total on every game on the betting board as we touch them all.
Hey, I'm Steve Heitner, the guy who uttered the famous phrase, "That's gold." And that's the inspiration of my new podcast, That's Gold with Steve Heitner. We talk sports, sports betting, movies, comedy, food, drink, Vegas, music, movies, and more. 5 days a week. Did I say movies twice? Look, guys love it, whether they're hip or worried about breaking a hip. Find us on Apple and Google Podcasts, as well as Spotify and Stitcher. That's Gold with me, Steve Heitner.
Welcome back to MLB Overtime. Greg is throwing a gem, so yeah, he better not blow it.
And we are back here in the Azuñia Tequila Studios for MLB Overtime Betting. A big thanks to our guest, Michael Baumann of The Ringer, for joining me in the last segment. And now it is that time that I give you a side and total on every game on today's betting board. and we do so in a little something I like to call Touch 'em All.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch 'em all.
Note that some of these plays are going to be locked in, some of these games are not. All those plays are not locked in. I'm going to be keeping you abreast of the situation on that on my Twitter page at unit_D1, as well as any changes that may be made to these plays. We're going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order, and we start with 951, 952. It is the New York Mets, and they go to Philadelphia to face off against the Phillies. Steven Matz on the bump for the Mets. Meanwhile, Nick Pivetta goes for the Philadelphia Phillies. Total on this game is 9, and it is shaded under. The under is between -110 and -115. The over is between -105 and -110. If you like the Mets, you're going to be getting a little bit of a plus price. It's anywhere between +103 and +105. Meanwhile, the Phillies anywhere between -113 and -115. I know that Nick Pivetta got absolutely shelled in his last outing, and both these teams are hitting quite well. I don't necessarily have a ton of confidence in Steven Matz either, so this is a spot where I'm certainly going to look at the over. With the Mets so far this year, Robinson Cano has been slumping, but you just notice all these guys being able to do a great job of being able to get on base. Michael Conforto, Wilson Ramos, Jeff McNeil, all hitting above 300. Pete Alonso hitting close to 350. He's been providing some power. Then for the Phillies, you've got a lot of bats that are going as well. Andrew McCutchen in his last couple games has been doing a nice job. Gene Segura, great at being able to get on base, and he had a stolen base yesterday. Bryce Harper, Rhys Hoskins, all able to provide power. Odubel Herrera and Miguel Franco have been doing a great job at the bottom of the lineup as well. All that leads to an over, especially with the Mets not necessarily having a great bullpen, and I do think that that's going to be the equalizer because we've seen the good Nick Pivetta this year, and we've also seen the bad Nick Pivetta this year, and we've seen the good Steven Matz throughout his career, and we've seen the bad Steven Matz throughout his career. Matz actually enters this game with a 1.65 ERA, but I've noticed that a lot of the Phillies players have had good results over their career against him, so I do think that the Phillies are going to be able to get to him. I think they're going to be able to dig into a Mets bullpen that, sans Edwin Diaz, just does not have a lot of redeeming qualities. So for that reason, on this total over, and I am going to be on the Philadelphia Phillies. Both these plays have yet to be locked in, by the way. Trying to see if I'm going to be able to get the Phillies at more of a -110 price, and trying to see if I can get a little bit of better juice on the over as well. 953, 954 on the betting rotation. It is the San Francisco Giants in Washington to face off against the Nationals. Steven Strasburg goes for the Nationals. Meanwhile, he will be opposed by Derek Rodriguez of the Giants. Total in this game is 8, and it's shaded a little bit under. If you like the under, it is between -110 and -115. The over is between -105 and -110. The Giants are a pretty hefty underdog. You're able to get between +175 and +170 with them. Meanwhile, if you want to lay it with the Nationals, anywhere between -190 and -193. Steven Strasburg, I feel like, is a little bit of an overrated pitcher for one, and two, the worst bullpen currently in the big leagues in regards to ERA, the Washington Nationals. Now, I know the San Francisco Giants have not been ripping the cover off the ball, to say the least, but what I will say for Kevin Pillar is that he has 3 home runs in the team's last 5 games. He's been doing a good job of being able to provide some power. Brandon Belt has been able to hit a couple home runs as well. In regards to average, oh goodness gracious, it is not going good for the Giants. In their last game, they were the victims of a one-hit shutout by German Marquez. But I do think that Marquez is much better than Steven Strasburg. Call me crazy, but I don't think that Strasburg is a very good pitcher. You've got just a bunch of guys that are not hitting for the Giants. So Evan Longoria, Pilar, Gerardo Parra, Joe Panik, Buster Posey, Brandon Belt, all hitting below 220 right now. That leads me to the under because I think that Derek Rodriguez actually a pretty good pitcher. He's not a guy that necessarily has wipeout stuff. He enters today with a 4.15 ERA, but his whip is below 1. He's not going to make a bunch of stupid mistakes. He's not going to walk a bunch of guys. And with the Washington Nationals, you got a couple guys that are doing a great job at the plate. Anthony Rendon has 6 home runs, 17 RBI. He's hitting 400. He's been terrific. Juan Soto has a lot of power, but at the same time, he's not necessarily a guy that's hitting for great average. He's hitting 250. Ryan Zimmerman, 205. Jan Gomes, right around 240. Defoe at the bottom of the lineup is hitting below 200. So there are some sleepy bats out there. I will say that Howie Kendrick doing a terrific job of being able to get on base. His OBP going into this game is .600, so he does a good job of being able to reach base. But I think that the Giants, along with their good bullpen, going to be able to get the job done, and I think that they're going to do just enough to get into that Nationals bullpen to be able to pull this one out. So for that reason, I am on the Giants, and I am on the under in this spot. In wait-and-see mode in regards to the juice on the under, I have a feeling this is going to tick downward, and I'm trying to see if I can get the Giants more around 180 or 185. I'm going to take a shot on the underdog here. So in wait-and-see mode on these plays, but I'm going to be on both of them. We go to Miami for 955, 956 on the betting rotation. It is the Chicago Cubs on the road against the Miami Marlins. Pablo Lopez goes for the Miami Marlins. Jose Quintana for the Chicago Cubs. That was a fun one to say, as the Cubs anywhere between a -140 and -145 favorite. You want to take a shot on the Marlins, you're getting anywhere between +130 and +135. Total in this game is 8, and it is shaded over. Over is -115. The under is -105. We've been noticing that the Chicago Cubs bats so far this year have been pretty darn good, and we've also noticed that their bullpen pitching has been pretty darn bad. But with that said, Quintana looked really good in his last start, in which he was able to go scoreless in a start against the Pittsburgh Pirates. That was very good to see, as he was able to give up no runs with 11 strikeouts in that outing. And he's just a guy that sometimes he is great and sometimes he is awful. I think we could see somewhere in the middle, but I just have no faith in Pablo Lopez whatsoever. He is 1-2 so far this year with a 6.60 ERA. He does a decent job of being able to get strikeouts. He's got 17 Ks in 15 innings. He's actually been limiting the base on balls too. He has 2 walks so far this year, but opponents are hitting .306 off of him. We noticed that was a little bit of a bugaboo for him last year. His opponents hit .252 off of him, and he had 18 walks in 59 innings last year. I have a feeling that the walks are going to tick up a little bit. And for the Chicago Cubs, even though Anthony Rizzo and Kyle Schwarber have been off to a little bit of a rough start so far this year, they've been doing a good job of being able to draw their walks for one. And then you've got Wilson Contreras, Jason Hayward, and Daniel Descalso being able to pick things up. David Bodie was able to hit a nice double yesterday to be able to drive in a couple runs for the Cubs as well. So they've got some bats that are really doing some nice things for this team. And with the Miami Marlins, you got a couple guys I think that could make an impact with regards to their bats. Starlin Castro at the middle of the lineup has been doing a good job of being able to get on base. I do think that they're going to be able to get something out of Austin Dean if he continues to see some consistent playing time as well. He's been picking it up along with Miguel Rojas at the shortstop spot, but you don't have a lot of true power with this team aside from maybe Neil Walker. So I do think that the Cubs have a big leg up here, and I'm going to take a look at a run line price with the Chicago Cubs. Currently seeing +115 in wait-and-see mode there, but certainly going to be on this game over as well, with Quintana likely giving up a couple runs and the shelling of Mr. Lopez likely in store as well. Already locked in the over in wait-and-see mode on that run line. As we move on to 957, 958 on the betting rotation, the Arizona Diamondbacks head to Atlanta to face off against the Braves. Max Fried goes for the Atlanta Braves. Robbie Ray for the Arizona Diamondbacks. The total on this game is 8, and it is -110 across the board on both the over and the under. If you like the Atlanta Braves, you're laying anywhere between -140 and -148. Want to take a shot on the Diamondbacks? That is anywhere between +130 and +138. And I do like the Arizona Diamondbacks in this spot. I am not necessarily bullish on Robbie Ray. Ever since the middle of last year, he just has been giving up way too many runs. But I also do like the Arizona Diamondbacks in general with their hitting. David Peralta has been doing a great job of being able to hit for average so far this year. 373. He's got a couple dingers. Ketel Marte has 4 home run, 13 RBI of his own. Adam Jones has been doing a great job of being able to generate some power in above 300 himself. And then with the Atlanta Braves, you got a lot of bats that are doing some great things as well. Dansby Swanson going into this game has 18 RBI. He's been ripping the cover off the ball. Freddie Freeman hitting just below 400. Ronald Acuna Jr. has been white hot recently. Josh Johnson has picked things up. Ozzie Albies doing a great job of getting on base. Nick Markakis has been doing great as well. It seems like Camargo is getting out of his rough start. And you got Charlie Culberson, a guy who's able to pinch hit and give this team some home runs and some good average as well. I certainly think that runs are going to be a plenty in this game. But I do think that Robbie Ray, who does a good job of being able to limit the opponent's batting average, is going to be able to do enough in this game to hand it to a bullpen that's been shaky at best. Max Fried actually has not given up an earned run so far this year, but I have a feeling that that is certainly going to change. I just am not really buying into him. He's not a guy that necessarily has wipeout stuff. He's got 9 strikeouts on the year heading into this game, and I think that the Arizona Diamondbacks are going to be able to hit them and hit them hard in a little bit more of a hitter's ballpark. You've got guys like Ahmad at the bottom of the lineup that are also able to hit. I just think that you've got so many weapons for the Diamondbacks that they're going to get into a Braves bullpen that is also very leaky. I think runs are going to be aplenty, and I think that the Arizona Diamondbacks are going to get freed out of the game before the Braves get Robbie Ray out of the game themselves. So for that reason, I'm going to take the plus price here with the Arizona Diamondbacks. I noticed that steam was coming in on the Atlanta Braves before doing this podcast, so currently in wait-and-see mode there, and I'm also going to be on this game over, currently waiting to see if I can get a little bit more favorable juice there. 959, 960 on the betting rotation. The St. Louis Cardinals are in Milwaukee to face off against the Brewers. Brandon Woodruff goes for the Brewers. Meanwhile, Jack Flaherty for the St. Louis Cardinals. Total on this game is 9 and is shaded over. The 9 is between minus 110 and minus 115 on the over. Under is anywhere between minus 110 and minus 105. If you like the Milwaukee Brewers, you're laying anywhere between minus 118 and minus 120. Want to take a shot on the Cardinals? That is between plus 108 and plus 110. The Brewers so far this year have been a very good bet on team. They're coming off winning 2 of 3 on the road against the LA Dodgers, and the whole outfield of the Milwaukee Brewers has been doing a sensational job of being able to hit. Ryan Braun, Christian Yelich, and Lorenzo Cain have all been getting the job done. Meanwhile, you take a look at the Brewers, they've got a couple bats that started off the year slow, but they seem to be picking it up. Travis Shaw's been hitting below 200 this year. That's been a little bit of a woe for this team. Eric Thames hasn't necessarily been the Eric Thames of old, but I like that Orlando Arcia was able to hit a couple home runs in that series against the Dodgers. Mike Moustakas, though he's not really hitting for average, he's been able to hit for some power. Yasmani Grandal has really been stepping up for this team as well. And then when you take a look at the St. Louis Cardinals, they've been doing a good job of being able to hit for average. They've been doing a great job of being able to hit for power, but not necessarily average. In the first inning yesterday, you saw Paul Goldschmidt and Paul DeJong be able to hit home runs, but Paul Goldschmidt right now hitting below 230 himself. Marcell Ozuna seems to be picking things up, but Yadier Molina has not been hitting for a very good average. Dexter Fowler has not been able to get out of his own way. Matt Carpenter still has some kinks in his swing, and Colton Wong has not been picking up things himself. So I am going to be on the under in this game, and I've already locked this one in. And I do think that Woodruff, a guy that's been a little bit more of a reliever and more of a short starter throughout his career, seems to be getting more into a groove as a full-time starter, so I do like to see that. And with Jack Flaherty, we've seen the best of him, and we've seen the worst of him so far this year. I think we're going to get an average Jack Flaherty, gives the team 6 innings, gives up something like 2 or 3 runs, and then hands it to a bullpen that's going to give up another 1 or 2. So I think that the Brewers win a little bit of a lower scoring game in this one, so for that reason, I am going to be on the Brewers in this spot in wait-and-see mode on that price, but have already locked in that under. 961, 962 on the betting rotation. The Colorado Rockies are in San Diego to face off against the Padres. Nick Margevicius goes for the San Diego Padres. I hope I finally said that last name correctly. Meanwhile, for the Colorado Rockies, this one's a slam dunk. John Gray goes for them. The total on this game is 7, and it is shaded way over. The over is minus 120. The under is even juice. If you like the Colorado Rockies, you're going to get anywhere between plus 116 and plus 122. If you want to lay it with the Padres, anywhere between minus 130, anywhere between minus 126 and minus 132. This is a spot where I take a look at the San Diego Padres, and I'm going to lock in the San Diego Padres at that minus 126. I think that that's a favorable price, and we are seeing a little bit of money starting to roll in on the San Diego Padres as well. I like the start that Margevicius and the entire Rocky and the entire young staff of the San Diego Padres has gotten off to. Margevicius currently has a 1.69 ERA. He's been doing a very good job of limiting a little bit of everything. His whip is a .63. He has been absolutely sensational. He is not necessarily a guy that's going to go out there and he's going to give you a whole bunch of strikeouts or anything like that. In 16 innings, he's just had 12 strikeouts, but only 1 walk, and opponents are hitting 161 against him, and he's obviously in a very hitter-friendly ballpark out there in San Diego. Meanwhile, you take a look at the Colorado Rockies. They've gotten a decent start so far this year from John Gray. He's been a little bit of a tough luck loser at 0-3, 4.19 ERA. He hasn't been walking too many guys, but with the San Diego Padres, I do like the way that their offense is rounding into form. Fernando Tatis Jr. has 4 home runs so far this year. You gotta like the fact that Manny Machado's been picking it up with the bat. Hunter Renfroe has went deep 4 times already so far this year. Manuel Margot has picked it up with the bat. Fanmil Reyes, as we talked to our man David Adler of StatCast a couple days ago, he's just been the victim of bad luck. He seems to be getting it going. And then Ian Kinsler, you got to think at some point is going to be able to get things started himself. And Will Myers hitting nearly 300 as well. Then you take a look at the other side for the Colorado Rockies. It was encouraging that Nolan Arenado was able to hit his first home run of the year on Sunday against the San Francisco Giants, but they don't have a whole lot of guys that are hitting for power, that are hitting for average or for power. David Dahl has been doing a decent job of being able to get on base, but it is a big woe for this team that Daniel Murphy currently is not in the lineup. He is currently on the 10-day injured list along with Chris Iannetta, so that's leading to a lot of mismatch of players. Tapia, whenever he's out there in the outfield, not giving this team a lot of average. He's hitting below 200. He's hitting below 220. At the top of the lineup, Charlie Blackmon has not been doing a great job of being able to get on base. Garrett Hampson hitting below 200. Mark Reynolds, Ian Desmond both hitting below 200 as well. Things just not going well for this lineup in general. And I do think the San Diego Padres are going to be able to get to John Gray, and I think that he's going to be the victim of giving up quite a few runs in this spot. I do think that the Padres are going to give up a run or two themselves. So I do look at this total over. Currently in wait-and-see mode just because the juice on the 7 is just way too high for me to take. I'd rather take a 7.5 at even juice rather than lay minus 120 on over 7. So currently in wait-and-see mode there, but I've already locked in the San Diego Padres. I should be able to get the win in this spot. 963, 964 on the betting rotation. We've got the Cincinnati Reds in Los Angeles to face off against the Dodgers. Kenta Maeda goes for the Dodgers. Tyler Mahle goes for the Cincinnati Reds. The Reds are a pretty big underdog in this spot. You can get anywhere between plus 145 and plus 151 on them. Meanwhile, if you want to lay it with the Dodgers, anywhere between minus 160 and minus 162. Total in this game is 8.5 and shaded under. Under is between minus 115 and minus 120. The over is between even juice and minus 105. The Dodgers have been in a really rough stretch the past couple of games as they were able to break that 6-game losing streak against the Milwaukee Brewers on Sunday. I do think that Kenta Maeda is a very decent pitcher, but I have some question marks with the LA Dodgers bullpen. You've got like Yimi Garcia coming in. He's just throwing lighter fluid on games. It's just not very good. Some of these guys are coming in like a Caleb Ferguson I like, but then there are other guys in this Dodgers bullpen that you just tear your hair out whenever they come into games. And Kenta Maeda, he's a good pitcher, but he typically doesn't go past 6 innings. So this is a spot where I do have to take a look at Tyler Mahle and the Cincinnati Reds, who have actually one of the better bullpens out there in the big leagues. So I am going to take a plus price here with the Cincinnati Reds, and I'm going to take a look at the total under. I do think that Kenta Maeda is going to be able to deliver a good, solid outing in this one, and we know that the Cincinnati Reds as a team not hitting very well going into Monday's action. They were hitting as a collective 210. Meanwhile, the Dodgers had really been generating a lot of power. But with that said, their team ERA was a 4.71 to the Cincinnati Reds 3.21. And I do think that the Reds are going to do a very good job of being able to pitch to the LA Dodgers. With the Dodgers, you've got a couple guys that are doing just a sensational job. Cody Bellinger came into Monday with 9 home runs, hitting over 420, but some of the other guys seem to be cooling down a little bit more. Austin Barnes, after a hot start, seemed to be coming back to earth a little bit. AJ Pollock has been in a little bit of a rough patch. Max Muncy and Kike Hernandez are doing a great job. Both those guys entered Monday with 4 home runs. And Jock Peterson generating a lot of power with 6 home runs himself, not necessarily hitting for the best of average. And when you take a look at the Cincinnati Reds, they do seem to be picking it up a little bit with that. Yasiel Puig on Sunday had his first home run of the year. Matt Kemp is upping his average a little bit more, though it's still not very good. You got to have some questions with Joey Votto, as he was not in the lineup yesterday, which I thought that was very intriguing, but you do still have Eugenio Suarez out there as well. He's able to generate some power. So this is a game that I certainly do see going under with all those factors, but I am going to be on the Cincinnati Reds in this spot. I just feel like it's a little bit too much of a plus price, and I do not trust the Dodgers pitching and bullpen at this point. So for that reason, I'm going to be playing the total under, and I'm going to be taking the plus price here with the Cincinnati Reds. I'm currently in wait-and-see mode to see what price I'm going to be able to get with the Cincinnati Reds and trying to see if I can get a little bit more favorable juice on that under. Next up, we go to one of the most classic rivalries out there in sports. 965, 966 on the betting rotation. The Yankees play host to the Red Sox. Chris Sale on the bump for the Red Sox. James Paxton going for the New York Yankees. You're taking a look across the board, and it's a pick'em game. Minus 105 on the Yankees, minus 105 on the Red Sox. Shoals 8.5, and this is shaded under. The under is anywhere between minus 115 and minus 120. The over is anywhere between even juice and minus 105. And I have absolutely no idea why anyone would be backing Chris Sale at this point. His velocity is way down from last year. I know that he had a quality start when he faced off against, I believe, the Oakland A's in his second start of the year, but past that, he just hasn't looked like his old Chris Sale self. If you've been fading him so far this year, you've been making a whole lot of money. And the bats in general for the Boston Red Sox just have not gotten things going. Xander Bogaerts in the last couple games against the Baltimore Orioles has looked pretty good. Mitch Moreland for the year has 5 home runs, 12 RBI. JD Martinez doing a decent job of being able to get on base, but Mookie Betts is in a little bit of a slump this year. Jackie Bradley Jr. has not gotten the job done. Nunez out there in the infield hasn't necessarily been doing a great job for them. Andrew Benintendi is right now day-to-day. Nunez, by the way, day-to-day himself. Brock Holt is on the 10-day injured list as well. There's just a lot of things that are not going well for this team. And for the Yankees, you've got so many players that are injured right now. Gary Sanchez on the 10-day injured list. Giancarlo Stanton on the 10-day injured list. Troy Tulowitzki, Dylan Betances, Aaron Hicks, the list goes on and on. But with that said, they're still finding a way to be able to generate some offense, as so far on the year, they've got 26 home runs. You've still got Luke Voigt, who's able to generate some power, not necessarily so much some average. DJ LeMahieu and Clint Frazier have been doing a good job of being able to get on base. Gotta like the way that Miguel Andujar, Gleyber Torres, and Aaron Judge are able to hit in the middle of the lineup as well. Got a lot of redeeming qualities there. And I just think that you've got the by far better starter out there in James Paxton. I think that in general, the Yankees have a better bullpen, which I think is going to allow them to be able to win this game. I am all aboard the Yankees in this spot. I've already locked this one in, and I've already locked in the under. I think that it's going to be a struggle for either team to be able to get to 4 runs, because I do think that Sale, even though his velocity has dipped, I do think that he's going to be able to give them a solid outing. I think that this is more of a spot where you look at Sale going 5 or 6 innings, giving up 2 or 3 runs, and then the bullpen from there gives up a run or 2. And I think the Yankees are going to be able to get a very solid outing from James Paxton. I feel like he's being a little bit undervalued, especially with the Yankees at home in this spot. So I've already locked in both these plays. Yankees and the unders are what we're going with. 967, 968 on the betting rotation. It is the Baltimore Orioles in Tampa Bay to face off against the Hot Shell Rays. Tyler Glasnow goes for the Tampa Bay Rays. Dylan Bundy for the Baltimore Orioles. The total on this game is 8, and it is shaded under. Under is anywhere between minus 110 and minus 115. The over is anywhere between minus 105 and minus 110. If you want to take a shot on the Baltimore Orioles, getting anywhere between plus 215 and plus 220. If you like the Rays, you're laying anywhere between minus 250 and minus 260. I have bet the Baltimore Orioles 3 out of the last 4 days. And we're doing it again, people. 4 out of the last 5 days, I am on the Baltimore Orioles. I feel like such a schmuck right now. I have no idea why, after saying so many bad things about the Baltimore Orioles, I'm betting them the 4 of the last 5 days, but here we are, and right now for the year, when I've bet on the Baltimore Orioles, they're 2-1, and all 3 of the games I bet on them, they were a plus $2 or greater underdog. I hate to say it, but there's value here with the Baltimore Orioles. They're actually hitting pretty well. Chris Davis, by some act of God, hit a home run yesterday. I don't know how, and I don't know why. Dylan Bundy leaves a lot to be desired. He's 0-1 with an 8.76 ERA. The Tampa Bay Rays have been doing a decent job of hitting, especially with Austin Meadows at the top of the lineup. He's got 6 home runs, 17 RBI. He's hitting above 350. I like the way that G-Man Choi is able to deliver some power out there in the middle of the lineup. Kevin Kiermaier's been picking up with the bat, hitting just below 300. He's been able to generate some pop. Willie Adames at the bottom of the lineup doing a good job of being able to get on base. Brandon Lowe hitting above 300. And Yandy Diaz is able to provide some power as well. But with the Baltimore Orioles, I really like the way Trey Boom Boom Mancini's been batting. 343 average, 6 home runs, 12 RBI. We saw it in their game yesterday against the Boston Red Sox. They were tearing the cover off the ball. Jonathan Villar hitting 300 so far. Dwight Smith Jr. is hitting 270. He's been driving in some runs. He had 4 RBI in that game yesterday. Chris Davis has somehow, some way found it with the bat, and now all of a sudden their DH spot with Renato Nunez has been actually pretty good. He's hitting .293, 2 home runs, 10 RBI. I actually like the way that the Baltimore Orioles are trending right now. Their bullpen leaves something to be desired, but they've been pitching a lot better recently as well. So even if Dylan Bundy goes all Dylan Bundy on us, which he's had some good starts, he's had some poor starts. I think that this might be a bad one, but even if he does, there's still some redeeming qualities with the bullpen, and I am betting on Dylan Bundy giving up some runs. So for that reason, I'm on this total over, and I've locked it in, but I am going to be going with the Baltimore Orioles once again, and I've already locked in the massive plus price. I feel like a moron when they lose by a count of like 7-0. You guys can laugh at me all you want, but we are on the Orioles, and we are on the over, begrudgingly. 969, 970 on the batting rotation. It is the Toronto Blue Jays in the Twin Cities to face off against the Minnesota Twins. Kyle Gibson goes for the Twins. Aaron Sanchez for the Toronto Blue Jays. The total on this game is 8.5, and it is shaded under. The under is -115. The over is -105 across the board. If you want to take a shot on the Toronto Blue Jays, you're going to get a plus price anywhere between +130 and +135. You want to lay it here with the Twins, you're going to be laying anywhere between -140 and -145. I do think that Kyle Gibson is a little bit of an undervalued pitcher. He had a little bit of a rough start to the year, but ever since then, he's really been picking things up. He's been a little bit of a heat check guy. Meanwhile, I actually really love the way that Aaron Sanchez has been pitching for the Toronto Blue Jays. 1-1 so far this year, 1.69 ERA. Now, he has had to evade a little bit of trouble. His whip is right around 1.38, so he's been giving out a couple too many free passes, but he does a good job of being able to get some strikeouts. He's got 16 strikeouts in 16 innings so far this year, and I noticed it last year as well. He did a very good job of being able to just be able to get out of bad situations in general. He is a guy that throughout his career has had a little bit of an issue with walks, but it is not as if the Minnesota Twins lineup necessarily scares you. Jorge Polanco doing a very good job of being able to hit for this team. He's hitting just below 400 so far. Max Kepler has been able to give this team a trio of home runs. At the top of the lineup, Eddie Rosario, 3 home runs at 11 RBI, but there is some inconsistency with this Minnesota Twins lineup in general. You've got guys like Cave that are not really picking it up with the bat. He's only a on and off player, but he just has not impressed me. Jonathan Scope had a couple good games so far this year, but he's been inconsistent. CJ Cron has not been doing a good job of being able to rake. Now, I do really like what they're getting out of the catcher spot, as Mitch Garver going into this game is hitting above 400. He's got 3 home runs. He's been sensational, but Nelson Cruz hasn't necessarily been giving this team the power that he has in the past. Now, he is doing a very good job of being able to get on base, but the power isn't there. With the Toronto Blue Jays, Freddie Galvis doing a tremendous job for this team. He's hitting above 300. 5 home runs at 11 RBI heading into Monday's action, so he's been doing a terrific job there. McKinney out there in the outfield has been picking up with the bat as well. Randall Grichuk has not been able to hit for a lot of average, but Justin Spoke has been picking things up, and he's been doing a good job of being able to draw his walks. Even though heading into Monday, he was hitting just .225, he had an on-base percentage right around 400. That's good. At the bottom of the lineup, you've got guys like Brandon Drury that aren't doing a good job of being able to get on base, so I certainly think that both these pitchers are going to be able to get a lot of outs. So for that reason, I am on this under, and I am currently in wait-and-see mode to see if I can get a little bit more favorable juice. But I do think that the Blue Jays are going to be able to do a good job of being able to hold down the fort against the Minnesota Twins. And I think that Gibson gives up maybe a long ball or two. I'm going to be on the Blue Jays, and I've already locked in that plus price, and I am in wait-and-see mode on this under. This game is currently off the board, but we do know who the starting pitchers are going to be in 971, 972. Matt Harvey goes for the LA Angels as they are on the road to face off against the Texas Rangers, as Mike Minor going to be taking the bump there. Like I said, I think that a big reason why this game is off the board is because they don't know whether or not Mike Trout is going to be in the game. I feel like those questions were answered when he came out and was in the DH spot yesterday, but I don't know why else this game would be off the board. But you know what? With the LA Angels putting up the performance that they did against the Texas Rangers yesterday, I'm going to be probably taking a look at the Angels once again in this game. And thanks to our good buddy Shelby Miller, the Texas Rangers bullpen got taxed because he winds up giving up 3 runs in the first inning. And with the Angels in general, you're noticing some of these guys picking it up with the bat. Mike Trout is hitting right around 400 for this team. Brandon Goodwin has been doing a tremendous job of being able to generate a little bit of power. He had another home run yesterday. He's hitting above 300. You've got some bats out there that are just not getting the job done. Tommy La Stella, Zach Cozart, both hitting below 200. Smith at the catcher spot hitting below 200, and then you've got Peter Borges. That is just a situation onto its own, and Drelton Simmons, Cole Calhoun, the list goes on and on. So probably going to take a look at an under because Mike Minor this year has actually been pretty good. And then with Matt Harvey, he's been a little bit hit or miss. Ever since coming over to the LA Angels, he hasn't necessarily been getting the job done, but I do feel like this could be a spot in which he could excel because I feel like he's going to be able to get some strikeouts with the Texas Rangers, having so many guys that swing for the fences. I know that Hunter Pence has been doing a very good job of being able to get on base for this team. Sin-Chu Chu, always a very reliable guy in being able to get on base, and Elvis Andrus as well, but then you've got guys like Joey Gallo, Noah Mazzara. There are a bunch of guys on this roster that they just are feast or famine. Delino DeShields Jr., you don't know if he's ever going to get on base for this team. And then Rougned Odor, currently on the 10-day injured list as well. Obviously, that's a little bit of a woe for this team. And the LA Angels enter into this game the number 1 team in all of baseball in regards to bullpen ERA. So even if Matt Harvey has a rough outing where he gives up 3 or 4 runs, your Angels ticket not necessarily going to be doomed. So I'm probably going to be taking a look at an under, and I'm probably going to be taking a look at the LA Angels, but obviously I need numbers for these plays to be bettable. So check back on my Twitter page at @unit_81 for plays in the morning on that. We move on now to 973, 974 on the betting rotation. The Kansas City Royals are in the Windy City to face off against the Chicago White Sox as it is the battle of the Lopezes as Renato Lopez goes for the Chicago White Sox and Jorge Lopez goes for the Kansas City Royals. As the total on this game is 9, and the 9 is shaded a little bit over. If you like the over, that is between -110 and -115. The under is anywhere between -105 and -110. If you want to take a shot on the White Sox, you're going to be getting right around even money depending on where you look. The White Sox anywhere between a -105 and -107 favorite. Meanwhile, the Kansas City Royals anywhere between -103 and -105 themselves. So very much a pick'em game. And with this game being a pick'em game and myself having a much higher value on the Chicago White Sox offense than I do the Kansas City Royals, I'm actually going to be going run line, and I've already locked this one in. I am on the run line of the Chicago White Sox, and I was able to get plus 190 on it at William Hill. I'm currently seeing it at plus 185. Just tremendous value if you think that the White Sox are going to be able to win this game by multiple runs like I do. And the reason why I think the White Sox are going to be able to win this game by multiple runs is because they've got much more power than the Kansas City Royals. So far for the year, the Royals have been getting some terrific performance from Alex Gordon. Going into Monday's action, he was hitting 360, 3 home runs, 13 RBI, and then Jorge Soler hit 4 home runs as well. But Lucas Duda, despite the fact that he had a home run on Sunday against the Cleveland Indians, not getting the job done at the bottom of the lineup. Hunter Dozier has not necessarily been the modicum of consistency with regards to his bat. He's been picking it up as of late, but I still have my questions with Dozier. Ryan O'Hearn barely hitting above 2 bills. Lucas Duda, Chris Owings, Martin Maldonado, all those guys are hitting 205 or worse right now. It's pretty stunning with Merrifield and Mondesi doing a good job of being able to get on base. But with the White Sox, got like the way that Yoan Moncada is raking. He's hitting above 300. He's got some good pop in the bat. Jose Abreu is barely hitting above 200, but you know that he's got some power. Got to think that Yonder Alonso is going to pick things up. Eloy Jimenez hitting just below 300. Tim Anderson hitting above 400 himself. And you got to think at some point Daniel Polk is going to be able to pick it up along with Adam Engel. Both these guys have really been struggling with the bats, but what I will say is that at the top of the lineup as well for the Chicago White Sox, they've been getting some very good performance from Lurie Garcia. He came into Monday's action hitting just above 300. He's been doing a good job of being able to provide some speed and being able to get on base. And then with the White Sox, I do have a little bit more faith in their Lopez rather than Jorge Lopez. I know that Jorge enters into this game with a 3.71 ERA, but I just take a look at his performances last year, and this is a gentleman that does not have very good plus stuff. He has so far this year 13 strikeouts in 17 innings. He's issued 6 walks in 17 innings. He's just not a guy that you can rely upon. And then both these bullpens, as we know, are gas cans. I would argue that the bigger gas can bullpen of the two is the Kansas City Royals, especially with a closer of Brad Boxberger. Oh my gosh, this guy sucks. He has been blowing games left, right, and sideways the past 2 years. It is absolutely incredible. And then with Ronaldo Lopez, he's been having a really rough year. He's got 12 walks in 13.1 innings. You got to think that he's going to be giving out some free passes, but I did see a little bit of potential with him last year. Last year, his ERA was below 4. He obviously had the issues with the walks, but he wasn't giving up as much hard contact, and let's face it, guaranteed rate field, it's not necessarily a hitter's ballpark. It's not necessarily a great pitcher's ballpark either. It's sort of one of those in-between ones, and I do think that he's going to be able to limit the hard contact in this spot, and I think that he's going to get some of the kinks figured out with his pitching. I certainly think that runs are going to be aplenty in this game, so I've already locked in the over, but I am on the White Sox run line because I do think that their lineup is really going to rake Jorge Lopez, and they're going to get into a really bad Royals bullpen. We move on now to 975, 976 on the regular rotation. It is the Houston Astros on the road facing off against the Oakland A's. Marco Estrada goes for the Oakland A's. Colin McHugh on the bump for the Houston Astros. If you like the Astros, they are anywhere between a minus 142 and minus 147 favorite. Meanwhile, if you want to take a shot here with the swinging Oakland A's, anywhere between plus 130 and plus 137. Total on this game is 8.5 and it is shaded under. The under is anywhere between minus 115 and minus 120. The over is anywhere between even money and minus 105. This is a spot where I do have to take a look at the under. I do like the way that McHugh has been pitching so far this year. I know that he's been sort of in the starting lineup and in the bullpen, but I like the way that he's gotten out this year. He's currently got a 2.65 ERA. He did a tremendous job of being able to get strikeouts out of the bullpen last year, and he's really translated it into the starting lineup this year. 22 strikeouts in 17 innings. He's got 5 walks in 17 innings, which obviously leaves a little bit of something to be desired, but at the same time, he's been pretty good, and he's backed up by a Houston Astros bullpen that has been nails recently. And with the Houston Astros, their lineup in general has just been top to bottom very good recently. Jose Altuve really hitting for this team. 7 home runs, 13 RBI. Michael Brantley has gotten his average near 300. Alex Bregman, after a slow start to the year, he's picked it up. Carlos Correa is really hitting as well. You're noticing that Tony Kemp is also picking it up. He's back over 2 bills in regards to his average. Yuri Gurriel hitting just below 300 as well. Other than Stassi, just about everyone for the Houston Astros has been hitting. And then with the Oakland A's, you've got Chris Davis, Chris with a K Davis, I should say, doing a great job of being able to provide power. He's got 10 home runs so far this year. He's been absolutely sensational in that regard. Robbie Grossman at the top of the lineup has been able to get on base. Matt Chapman providing a little bit of everything along with Marcus Semien, but Kendrys Morales and Steven Piscotty not necessarily hitting for average along with Jurickson Profar. Loreno has been picking it up with the bat, but he's still sometimes a little bit hit or miss. And I do think that the Astros are really going to be able to tame these Oakland A's bats. And something else we noticed with Oakland is that it is very much an over ballpark during the day, and it very much is a under ballpark during the night. I believe that it's like due to the marine temperatures or something like that. I am not a meteorologist. I am a handicapper. I got a C- in college in weather and climate, so I don't necessarily know what it's called. It's marine something, but it leads to the ball just not flying out the way that it typically does during the day. So that's why I'm going to play this total under. I think that the Astros are going to be able to limit the hard contact, and I think that they're going to be able to drive in some runs themselves, and I have locked in both these plays. I am on the Astros and the under in this game. 977, 978 on the betting rotation. We've got Bieber Fever out there in Seattle as the Mariners play host to the Cleveland Indians. Shane Bieber goes for the Cleveland Indians. Mike Leake for the Seattle Mariners. The total on this game is 8, and it is shaded a little bit to the over. The over is between minus 110 and minus 115. The under is anywhere between minus 105 and minus 110. With regards to the side, this is moving just all over the place. Right now, we are noticing the Cleveland Indians anywhere between even money and a favorite of minus 110. Meanwhile, if you like the Seattle Mariners, you're going to be anywhere between even money to laying right around minus 110 as well. This is a spot where you have to decide, do you think that this game is going to be lower scoring, or is this game going to be higher scoring? I think that the Seattle Mariners bats win out, and I was able to find a run line price of the Seattle Mariners on this game because the run line is decided by the favorite. Typically, whenever you see it being minus 105 on both sides, they will by default make the favorite the home team, which is the Seattle Mariners, which means that you're going to be able to get minus 1.5, which means that you're going to get a very good plus price. I noticed that over at a couple shops out there in Vegas, and I was able to get a Mariners plus price that was really, really juicy that I just could not pass up. I'm on the Mariners run line at plus 180. I do think that their bats win out. They've just got so much power on this entire lineup, and going into Monday, they had gotten a home run in each of their first 18 games of the year. That is a record out there in the majors. Edwin Encarnacion is providing power. Jay Bruce heading into Monday had 7 home runs. Daniel Vogelbach has been the best story out there in the bigs. Tim Beckham has been raking. Mitch Haniger is picking it up with the bag. Malik Smith is able to do a good job of being able to get on base. Omar Narvaez providing something out there at the catcher spot. The list goes on and on and on. And with the Cleveland Indians, they actually seem to be finding their bats. In 2 occasions in the past 8 days, they have scored 8 runs or more, which is a little bit of a redeeming quality. Leonis Martin on Sunday was able to hit his 3rd home run of the year. He's hitting right in the neighborhood of 270 at the time of this broadcast. He's been picking it up with the bat. You got to think that Carlos Gonzalez being back in the lineup is also going to help things out for them a little bit, but you got guys like Jose and Hanley Ramirez. They're both hitting below 200 so far this year. They're leaving a lot to be desired. Brad Miller at the second base spot has been picking it up with his bat, but you've got so many other guys that are not getting the job done. And Jay Bieber is not a guy that's really going to have plus stuff. He's not going to make guys swing and miss too much. He relies on being able to keep the ball in the ballpark, and I feel like Mike Leake is a little bit the same way. I think that both these pitchers get touched up. I know that the Cleveland Indians have a good bullpen, but it's been used quite heavily in the past couple days as well, so they're going to be really on fumes as well. So for that reason, I'm doing a little bit of a correlated play and doing a little bit of a math play as well. I am going to be taking the Mariners on the run line at that massive plus price. I've already locked that in, and I've already locked in the over at minus 110 as well. This is one of those games where, like I said, if you like the under, you probably want to take the Indians, and you want to probably try to get the best price possible on the Indians. I don't think that they'd be able to win it by multiple runs, but if you think the Mariners are going to win and you think it's going to be a higher scoring game, they're probably going to win by multiple runs, and that's why I'm taking that plus price on the run line. So that is a little bit of an explanation there, and that is my crazy math formula on trying to mitigate juice and trying to be able to make some money. So hopefully you enjoyed that as we move on to the final game on the betting rotation, 979, 980. It is the Pittsburgh Pirates in Detroit to face off against the Tigers. Matthew Boyd goes on the mound for the Detroit Tigers. Joe Musgrove for the Pittsburgh Pirates. If you like the Pirates, you're going to be laying anywhere between minus 115 and minus 120. Meanwhile, if you want to take a shot on the Tigers, you're going to be getting anywhere between plus 105 and plus 110. So in this game is 8, and it is shaded under. The under is minus 115, and I'm seeing a one-shot minus 120. The over is anywhere between even juice and minus 105. And this is a spot where I do have to take a look at the Pittsburgh Pirates, and I do think that it's going to be a very low-scoring game. With the Pirates, Josh Bell has been doing a great job at the middle of the lineup. He's got 3 dingers so far this year. He's hitting above 300, but there's not a whole lot else that you can really say about the power of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Sterling Marte is hitting 211. Francisco Cervelli hitting below 200. John O'Kong has been absolutely atrocious. Their infield has been a little bit banged up. I do like the fact that Cullen Moran is hitting above 300. He's been a little bit of a plus for this team, hitting 308 so far this year, so that's good. And Adam Frazier at the top of the lineup has been doing a great job with his on-base percentage right around 377. Meanwhile, with the Detroit Tigers, they've got a lot of guys that are banged up. Nick Castellanos is day-to-day. You want to check in on his status, along with Nico Goodrum and Josh Harrison. With Jody Mercer on the 10-day injured list as well, you're just left with a bunch of guys that just don't hit very well. Miguel Cabrera, you can tell, is still rehabbing from his injury. He seems to be picking it up a little bit with the bat, but he's not the Miguel Cabrera of old. He's hitting 259 for the year. Christian Stewart is hitting below 200. Hicks at the first base spot is hitting below 200. You just take a look at the lineup they trotted out there against the Minnesota Twins on Sunday. You had 3 guys that were hitting above 210 in the lineup. just really hard to trust those bats. And Matthew Boyd has been doing a terrific job of pitching so far this year as well. This is a gentleman that enters into this game pitching much better than his 1-1 record would indicate. In his 3 starts, he's got 29 strikeouts, a 2.60 ERA, and the Detroit Tigers bullpen in general has been great. And then you take a look at Joe Musgrove. He certainly should be better than his 1-1 record. He has a 0.0 ERA, and yet he's got a loss to his credit. That is just absolutely unreal right there. And the Pittsburgh Pirates bullpen, it's not great, but at the same time, it's been getting the job done. We saw Velasquez go in and get a 2-inning save against the Washington Nationals a couple days ago. And I think with the Detroit bats being so bad and banged up at this point, the value is on the Pittsburgh Pirates. I am going to be backing the Pittsburgh Pirates, and I'm on this total under, and I have locked in both these plays. And that will do it for another tremendous edition of MLB Overtime Betting. I'd like to give a big thanks to Michael Baumann of The Ringer for joining me in the second segment. Very dynamite spot there. And if you like what you're hearing from this fine podcast, you can subscribe on Apple iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and Stitcher. If you ever have a question for the podcast, feel free to tweet it in at @Unit_81. And let's make today a tremendous, profitable, and fun one. And I'll talk at you guys once again tomorrow, as I will every day throughout the baseball season in which there are bettable games. Thank you so much for tuning in.